So something that a lot of crypto investors don't like to admit their losses. And I want to show you right now that losses are in crypto, especially, and in investing, is not only inevitable, it's just part of it. And the sooner you come to grips with that, the better investor you're going to become, because so many people think that everything is going to be so beautiful and pearly and it's just going to be up and to the right. And that, having that sort of mentality, that's where you can get very, very depressed. Even I've suffered from depression from losses that I've taken in crypto. I want you to understand that losses, again, they're a normal part of investing, and hopefully by some of the lessons I'm going to teach you here, this will help lessen the blow to some of the losses that you all may have. And I've been, teaching people crypto now since January of 2018, so coming up on 6 years, and definitely have seen not only my share of losses, but my students' share of losses. And I want to just encourage you to know that these losses are real, and that if you've lost in crypto, that you shouldn't give up. That shouldn't be like, oh my gosh, it's all a scam, it's all a fraud. It's not. Because you could have just as easily lost all your money in the stock market, or you could have just as easily lost your money in a bad real estate deal. And it happens all the time. I've lost money in the stock market. I've lost money in real estate. So let's talk about some of my losses here. So the first one was Rentberry. Rentberry was, for those of you that are OG, Rentberry was an ICO that I got into. It was supposed to be the Airbnb on the blockchain. They did some really, really creative marketing, and in the end, it turned out to be just a big nothing burger. You can see here, Rentberry has a negative 100%. Okay, it doesn't get any worse than that in terms of the ROI. This thing just basically went to zero. I mean, there's probably still a little bit of money in there, but definitely went to zero, and it did not feel good. But realistically, this Rentberry is just toast. It's done. It's never going to come back, because if whoever's trading it is just pump and dumping it, and I don't know what. The next one is DAV Network, and this was supposed to be like the Amazon with like flying drone bots, and everything was going to be autonomous, and they were going to drop ship from the freaking container to your house. It didn't end up going that way. Both Rentberry and DAV, I invested $2,500. And DAV, even though I didn't take the 100% loss, and neither did I in Rentberry, I probably sold when, the loss was at about 50 or 60%. But this was definitely one that just ended up going down to zero. And if you would have held on to this, you would have just lost all of your money. It would have turned into vaporware. So you do have to be careful when you are getting into these earlier projects, because 99.99999% of them do not succeed, guys and gals. There's tens of thousands of cryptos. Just go to CoinMarketCap, go to a CoinGecko, and just keep scrolling down and see how many of them have literally become nothing. All right, even though they may still be somewhat alive, they're kind of like zombie cryptos. You want to definitely take a look. BDO is another one. This one was on the Binance Smart Chain network. This was a DeFi protocol. You can see here, look at this. Your derivative of DOT, they were paying 77,000%, and they really lured you in. I mean, look at these colors. The website was beautifully designed. But at the end of the day, take a look at this. Ended up going to zero. A lot of these old DeFi protocols, they ended up bringing you in and just going like, wow, look at this. This is going to be such a great protocol. And what ended up happening was you just got wrecked. All right, you got wrecked. You were exit liquidity from somebody. And on this one did hurt. The other ones I only invested like 1,600. This one I invested like 16,000. And I think I ended up walking away with maybe 3 of that. So I got wrecked. The BP dot that I was swapping my real dot for essentially was not really pegged, and it just went to kaput. Here's PokeSwap. Now, PokeSwap is still around, and it has kind of like come back more or less. Guys, I'm not gonna lie, I bought probably right at the peak. Bought maybe 2,500. I didn't invest all of my money into it. And this thing basically down 99.2%. Just ended up being, you know, I thought it was going to be the Uniswap of Polkadot, but Polkadot really hasn't done much in the last few years. There's a lot of people who are saying that it could come back, but you know, I was like that about EOS. If you don't know what EOS is, take a look at it. I mean, I think it's still in the top 100, but at the same time, EOS ended up, now it's just basically like a ghost chain. It still has some liquidity in it, but I think it's just like people who got in so early and they're just like, okay, whatever, I'm just gonna stay here. But at one point in time, they raised $4 billion in EOS, but Polkadot's kind of like starting to become the same thing. There are a lot of builders on Polkadot though, second to Ethereum, but I just don't see it. I just don't see it. If you're in Polkadot, if you're like a Polkadot maxi, drop in the chat down below. Like, tell me what's really going on. Put some links in there. I wanna go through it and take a look. Now, Celsius. This was before Celsius crashed. I actually got into the ICO, or the initial coin offering, which means like I got in before the public got into this, and I bought Celsius. And had I have like held on, actually would have made a lot of money. Now, Celsius turned out to be a Ponzi scheme, okay, ish. They're still fighting that out. Definitely, there was some malfeasance there. They just ended up taking some money to pay this person, and it wasn't good. And inevitably, Celsius ended up collapsing. But when I first got in, Celsius was, you know, up here, and then it did basically crash during the 2018 bear market. And what ended up happening was during that crash, I ended up selling. Now, I did this slide coincidentally before Celsius crashed last year in April. It was still very, very hot. I still would have made a lot of money. If I take a look at this here, like I probably would have been up, I don't know, more than probably 100x at the point that I bought it at, okay, which is fantastic, all right? 100x is a very, very good return. But now Celsius, again, is a nothing burger. But I did capitulate. I sold my Celsius probably at, and I did invest like about $5,000 into Celsius. I probably sold it at a 60 to 70% loss, which did hurt. It did suck to capitulate like that. And the reason was I just didn't know enough about crypto. I didn't see what they were building. Granted, they were building a Ponzi scheme, but probably if I would have been paying a little bit more attention, I would have stayed in Celsius for a little bit longer and captured some of that upside. SHIB is the gain that hurt the most, okay? And you can see here, these are my transaction IDs. I actually took this screenshot from the blockchain of one of the wallets that I was using at the time. And I bought SHIB like 6 days into it. And you can take a look here. I had 776 billion SHIB, which when I put it into CoinGecko at this point in time, okay, and I think it's worth less now, it was worth $19.7 million. And I think at the height of this, it was worth in the 40 or $50 million range, okay? And I only invested a couple $1,000s into this one. Had I have actually held on to this, I would have been very, very wealthy beyond my wildest dreams. But one thing that I did learn from this potential gain, and by the way, the reason I sold it, I didn't sell it at a loss. I actually made like 600%, and I was like, I looked at it, I looked at the project, and I was like, this is dumb. I don't know where this is going. Now, what I've done now and going into the future, I call this kind of like what my SHIB lesson, okay? Whenever I do profit or even don't profit, if I just sell out of a position, you never know what position is going to bounce back. I personally don't ever sell out of a position completely. So what I would have done here is I probably would have left 10 to 20% behind. Now, if I would have left 10 to 20% behind at $19 million, how much would I have? Well, like 2 million to 4 million, depending on how much I left behind. Okay, so this is this is really, I call it the gain that hurt the most, because while I did make a nice chunk of money, had I have left just a little bit behind, it could have turned into millions of dollars. And again, now what I do on any crypto, I always leave 10% behind. I have a whole bunch of little cryptos that are worth near zero, but who knows? One could get revived, or one could have like a group of developers that are working on the whole protocol, and then all of a sudden, bam, during the next bull market, you're up. So anyways, hopefully you learned from some of my lessons here. This is something that I'm really, really passionate about, is going into my losses. I'm not going to just bury my head in the sand. I want to see, what did I do wrong? Where did I take too much risk, etc., etc. Now, I used to put in like $2,500 to $2,000 into like some of these shit coins. Now what I do is I start off very, very small, $500. And the majority of my stack is Bitcoin, Ethereum, and maybe some of my top 10 from there. It's something that I came up with called the 25% rule that we'll talk about another day. But in part of that 25% rule, my new rule inside of that, always keep 10 to 20% behind, just in case something goes up for you and the project is revitalized. You might just be surprised and wake up one day and go, holy crap, I've got a ton of money in here. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you like content like this, subscribe please. And also, if you're interested in learning more about how we make money in decentralized finance, there's a link below as well to a video that you can watch for free on how we make the most amount of money in decentralized finance and how you can participate. I'll see you guys on the next one. Become your own bank. Cheers.